Hi everyone, and welcome to our third session today as part of our case study series called City Encounters. My name is Adam Beck. I'm Executive Director for the Smart Cities Council here in Australia and New Zealand. I'm delighted to bring this session today as part of Smart Cities Week Australia New Zealand 2020. It's called Smart Cities Week, but it's actually going for about 8 months, and we've been underway with a whole range and a whole series of online engagements since April, and we still have a few more coming up. Today is, as I mentioned, the third in a series that we've been running today. For those that are joining us for the second or the third time today, welcome back. For those that are joining us for the first time, the case study series is exactly what it says, a series of case studies from cities, and we're really looking forward to bringing you hopefully five, maybe four case studies under the theme of impact today. Just a couple of notes before we kick off. You are all on mute. That's been enabled by default. However, your voice can still be heard through our questions function and questions panel on the control panel that you have access to. You can see on the screen here how you can jump in. And we encourage you to ask questions along the way. We've got a diversity of presentations and case studies today, topics, but all around that common theme of impact. So smart cities investments, technology and data actions that are actually delivering outcomes, which is the feature over the next hour and a half that we want to present and also discuss. You'll also note there that our recordings of these sessions will be up on our YouTube channel by about this time tomorrow. So if you have a colleague or a friend or a peer that wanted to take part in this session this afternoon but couldn't, you will find it up on our YouTube channel tomorrow. Just search Smart Cities Council Australia, New Zealand. As I mentioned, Smart Cities Week Australia, New Zealand has been running for quite some time. The program for what's left over the coming months is up there. Head to scwaustralia.com to check it out. Some really good sessions that are running up until around about end of October. For those that haven't been following us in the news or on LinkedIn or other platforms, I just wanted to mention very quickly that our partnership program has expanded recently. Traditionally, we've been a supply side only membership-based organisation, but recently expanded that to include 3 new categories, including cities, but also startups and research and knowledge partners, such as universities, for example. So if anyone's interested in that, finding out what the benefits are and the investment, please head to our website, smartcitiescouncil.com. The Academy is part of Smart Cities Week. We subscribed fully. We oversubscribed our first session, which is a day-long intensive, 3 2-hour sessions. The first one was on Tuesday, 13th of October. That got fully subscribed in around about 48 hours. We've opened up a second one on Thursday, the 15th of October. We've got about 5 seats left. If anyone is interested, this is a free complimentary engagement and series of modules for local government employees and also members of the Smart Cities Council. You can head to scwaustralia.com to get further information about that, and of course those 3 foundation modules that you'll be sitting in on. That gives you the opportunity to also pursue the Smart Cities Practitioner Certificate that we've also launched. So today, let's get stuck into this. The format: 12 minutes each for our presenters. Their brief is to articulate a challenge, what the solution was, what the outcomes are, and most importantly, the lessons learned, so that we can share those and we can all learn from each other. And joining us on today's session, this impact session, we have 5 guests. We haven't had Josh join us yet. We hope that everything is okay, and he will be with us shortly. But we do have in person right now up on the screen Dominic Michael from not the city of Perth, but Brisbane City Council. Sorry, Dom.
That's all right.
That was a leftover from this morning. Dr. Nathaniel Babington from Newcastle, we have Barbara from Canterbury Bankstown, also in Newcastle. Sorry, not Newcastle, New South Wales, yes. And David Eckstein from City of Sydney. It is the last session of the day. So Dom, Nathaniel, Barbara, and David are with us. We hopefully may have Josh join as we go through. So with that, our order of proceedings is Brisbane, Canterbury, Bankstown, Darwin, Newcastle, and Sydney. For our delegates and our audience, we're going to run through each of the case study presentations first, and then we will convene in a panel. We'll go through Q&A as they come up on the screen at the end. So really encourage you to listen, learn, and then share your questions and your comments throughout. And if you are directing a particular question or comment to someone particular on our panel, if you could sort of mention that you're directing it to them, that would be fantastic. So without any more delay, Dom, I'm going to hand over the presenter controls to you, and you should be all good to go any moment now.
Good afternoon, everyone. Just checking that's working at all.
No, don't have your screen yet, Dom.
Okay. Would you mind sending that link again, please?
Okay. Yes.
That's it. Got it.
That's it. Let's have a look. If you want to put that in presenter mode. Excellent. All looking good, Dom. Over to you. Thank you. 12 minutes, and I'm starting the clock now.
Oh, well, thank you for the introduction. My name's Dominic Michael. I work for the Brisbane City Council in City Analytics, and this afternoon I'll be speaking about the City Life dashboard, which is in relation to the impact study. So the challenge thrown down to us in late March was in relation to the COVID-19 infection rate, where almost overnight Brisbane's CBD emptied as employees transitioned to work from home. People left cafes, pubs and restaurants. And the team, City Analytics team, needed a way to understand how the restrictions were impacting movement and activity in the CBD. So the solution that we came up with was using the information and data that is in relation to movement and activity, which Council has had for years. We were attempting to put all of that data into one dashboard, into a central place, and share that amongst the stakeholders to measure the economic and social impacts of COVID-19. We led the project to include data sets that were already within Council, such as the pedestrian counts, the cyclist counts, and the car parking volumes, and then used a few of our third-party providers from the e-scooters and bus patronage to bring together an overall data set which helps paint a city-wide lens of the movement and activity that COVID-19 and how it's affected us. So it was very interesting as a study, as we saw obviously decline in pedestrians, e-scooter use also declined, bus patronage saw a dip, car parking volumes, as well as the Apple Maps and TOMTOM congestion data. But there were a few green beacons in there. One of them was the cyclist counts, where we saw increased activity. And we also saw a lot more publicly used spaces such as parks. So what the data was able to do, and this is just a few examples of the analysis we performed, we compared the data to the long run average, and this is using the pedestrian data within the Queen Street Mall. We could compare current numbers to a long run average, and that compared 2019 data and 2020 data, and we can see the overall health there. We noticed the peaks and troughs and saw the big drop off in April, with the largest drop being in that month, where volume dropped down to 62,000, and with a long run average now of around 227,000, the drop of 72% was quite significant. as we look at the dashboard on a daily and weekly basis, any amount of green is also a little win for us. So comparing to Fridays, the last 2 Fridays that just passed, we saw an uptick in 14%. And we've seen steady growth from the dip in April through June, July, and August. And with a few cases around now, it's really good to measure that up against the September numbers. Also, the data shows other information such as key months that have been popular, key days of the week, and this is just a pedestrian snapshot, but this is across all 6 data sets. We've got some screenshots of the data, the dashboard, how it's visualized online. By bringing it into one central space, it's much easier for everyone to compare like for like and to see the overall health of the city. We run things like the line graph for long run average comparison. We can see the trends in either decreasing or increasing in volume numbers. We show the table data with daily changes, same day last week changes, and long run average comparisons, and then key months and days of the week. So for the Queen Street Mall is a great study of how those lockdown restrictions impacted the CBD and how that affected the broader area amongst the city. The Apple Maps data, which is one of our third-party providers, is available online, and each day we go in and update the data specific to Brisbane. And this data set compares driving, walking, and transit. Whilst it is a third-party provider, it does still show the same trend in activity, with the peak in January, February, the drop-off in April, May, and a steady increase in activity through June, July, August. It's good to know that there are other data sets such as this to compare against, which helps with our data quantification. And another one of the data sets is TOMTOM congestion data. So we compare this from 2020 data via TOMTOM in relation to 2019 daily changes, key days of the week and months as well. So how's the data being used for us? Well, on a daily basis, it's uploaded to a platform which all of the staff within Brisbane City Council has access to, and that's Power BI. That's shared within Council's divisions and helps decision makers and response generation. For example, in the car parking category, we had some days and weeks where car parking was a flat rate for the entire day, and we were able to almost witness some cause and effect in terms of price changing and activity level. As the data was provided nice and early as well through COVID-19, we were able to get a good gauge and grasp of what was happening during that time and come together and think about some possible response measures for moving ahead and the return to normality. And long term, we're looking to commit to this data to be available publicly, helping businesses in the community in how they can better understand what's happening around the CBD and respond to them. We have learned some lessons from the study. One of the key lessons is that it's very valuable to have this data unlocked from the data silos it normally exists in. As I said before, it's a weekly export to Council's executive management team and deputy mayor. So there's been great response and interest in the data as it's all been combined into the one source and easy to access. When we tend to look at these data projects, it's always important for us to think about the start of it and how at the contract level stage we can be clear with data specifications, data access. Do we need to allow direct access, APIs, etc.? And it also is a great way for us to be clear about moving forward when we do engage with stakeholders, how we can best use the data that we currently have on hand, and moving forward with new contracts, what we can do with that data to combine it. A few of the other things that has been beneficial towards is that now the study has been transitioned into a business as usual data project. So whilst it was a proof of concept project at the beginning of the COVID period, It's continued to be updated daily and has gained a lot of attention from key stakeholders, and will be continued as business as usual, which will be perfect moving forward as it enhances our data capacity and capability, and also the attitude towards data and really understanding that technology that collects it can be further enhanced by combining it with some data analysis and insights. I've really rushed through that, Adam, but hopefully.
Oh, I didn't even flash you the 2 minutes to go sign, Dom. You've
No.
you've been very efficient. 8 minutes, which is great. So no pressure to any of our fellow panelists at all. But Dom, thank you so much for that. Again, to our delegates online, questions, load those up in the questions box. But what we'll do is we will hand the presentation over to the presentation controls over to Barbara. Barbara, that should be coming your way around about now, and you should be able to bring your presentation up.
Okay.
And when that is the case, I will get the timer going. Excellent. That's looking fantastic, Barbara. Over to you. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. Hi, everybody. So by way of introduction, my name is Barbara Ioannidis. Adam, I noticed that you carefully didn't pronounce that before. Long Greek name. Easiest way to say it is I don't need this, but I work for Canterbury Bankstown Council, and I'm project managing their largest smart city project at the moment, which is closing the loop on waste. So I've tried to follow the clear outlines of challenge, solution, outcome, and lessons learned. Okay, so kicking off with the challenge, the waste service at Canterbury Bankstown Council makes up 20% of our operational budget. That's $65 million. And we have the highest contamination rates in our recycling bins in New South Wales, and that's 26% compared to a 16% state average in New South Wales. We have a population of 365,000 people. And to put that into consideration for everybody, 44% of our population were born overseas. And if I could give you one example, a suburb in our local government area, 15% of residents speak English. So it's quite apparent that we have an immensely diverse and complex community, whereby one standard approach of communication just isn't going to cut it. 30% of our customer service calls are waste related, and we also have our upcoming insourcing project. So to explain that a little bit more, currently our waste service is split into two. So Bankstown side of the LGA is managed in-house, and Canterbury side is outsourced. That's just a product of the amalgamation in 2016. But with Canterbury being insourced and fully managed by May next year, we had a hard deadline to deliver on this project. So challenge accepted. We had applied for the Smart Cities and Suburbs grant, and we were successful around 2 applicants. We received just over $1 million in funding, and we matched it as a council. So it was a $2.1 million project all in all, and we had 18 months to crack the code. And we were well aware that we weren't going to achieve this on our own. So we partnered up with UTS, Western Sydney University, and Blue Chili as the subject matter experts in certain parts of the project. So in order to understand our approach, I want to share with you all a little bit of our current state in February 2019 when the project kicked off. Our service productivity and capability was heavily dictated by manual processes. Our staff were limited by outdated processes and disparate systems, so they couldn't really do their job efficiently. So for example, I've got here that, missed bin requests took 72 hours to turn around. Essentially what that meant is when we missed a bin, this was followed up by an 8-step manual process. And that involved the resident calling us, the customer experience team notifying our waste team, manually printing a run sheet and manually logging it into the system. It was very archaic, and we made a strong effort to automate that process, which I'll go into a little bit later. But essentially, we're servicing 113,000 households, and the majority of our waste truck drivers have been working with us for over 20 years. They know the route, they know which household pays for 2 bins, which households are serial double dippers, as we call them. And with an aging workforce, the corporate knowledge they retain goes with them at retirement. So this was something that we were very mindful of. So this is the solution. We thought, let's flip this scenario around. Instead of waiting for the customer to come to us, let's reach out to them first and let's give our ratepayers the level of service that they deserve. So we kicked off with getting the house in order. We needed to mobilize our team and we had the subject matter experts in-house. So we chose to manage this project internally with our 4 key stakeholders. So they were waste operations, the tech team, sustainability team, and customer experience. And we put people first, and everything designed, tested, and piloted in this project was based on human-centered design. We wanted to automate the manual, give our people the chance to do more meaningful work, share data within our organization and to our community, so breaking down those communication barriers, and everything was built for purpose. So everything we did was centered around the user story of the stakeholder, and we built an entire solution architecture to link our systems and automate that workflow. So in putting people first, we're focusing on the safety of our staff. Our drivers operate in the most stressful environment. They get harassed, they have cars swerving around them unsafely. It's crazy. I got to ride along in a truck and it was insane. But it was a consultative process both within and beyond the project group, and heavy user testing meant that we're designing bespoke solutions for each team. So there's no off-the-shelf solutions here. Every council is unique and we have to cater to our demographic and our talent. So automating the manual, we kicked off with a pilot day. We had a theory to put to the test, but we needed to find a way to make people feel comfortable in the uncomfortable. So we planned a controlled trial by de-risking the experiment on the field at a council location and eliminating the source of apprehension. So our staff were apprehensive about going out to the community too early, not testing the functionality behind our tech. So by doing this, we had no resident interaction and no retrofit complexities. So in testing the potential of automation in these processes, we installed an RFID scanner on one of our waste trucks. We retrofit RFID tags onto 20 of our spare bins, and we registered every RFID tag to a dummy address to a resident that would be referred to on the day. And we stripped it back to basics and reversed the roles. So our staff were given personas on the day and they would receive an automated text notifying them of a bin event. So here you can see a GIF example of one of our managers getting really involved in the experiment. But basically we tested server capabilities, we automated notifications and image recognition, the time, quality and impact of that text. And our purpose was to demonstrate that RFID could be a workable solution for us, and it wasn't about looking perfect. It was about testing what's possible. So again, looking at automating the manual, we kitted out our waste truck fleet with high resolution cameras and an interactive display. So basically the driver presses a button to log an event, the GPS coordinates of the truck location are captured and reverse geocoded in Google Maps back to the nearest address. Our team have also automated a bin spill work order. So when the driver logs a spillage event by interacting with his truck display, a work order is automatically generated and sent to our City Clean team. Analytics. We invested in an analytics tool to retrieve data from multiple systems, allowing our teams to have data at their fingertips to make informed decisions. So drawing on data from pathway and truck events, here you can see a snapshot of the analytics tool. It can now point out repeat offenders. And 2 types of events have been recorded here, which is foreign and contamination. Basically, foreign is when a bin that's not a Canterbury Bankstown bin is presented. You can see here the second address in Villawood has presented the wrong bin 3 times. Essentially, they shouldn't have that bin. And contaminated is the more interesting one, where they're putting the wrong thing in their recycling bin. So we know which households are continuously not recycling properly. Here we have the analytics dashboard again, just a quick example to see about all the data that's coming in from our truck and automated at the moment. And basically our team back at the depot, or our customer experience team, can now actually see images of what the driver's seen. So when the customer calls, or if we contact the customer first, we've got proof. We've actually got something to show them and explain what they're doing wrong or what's happened. Automating the manual, so AI. So essentially, we've used artificial intelligence in our hopper camera, so that's the camera in the back of the truck, to detect the wrong thing going into our recycling bins. Essentially, this is saving time and resources by automating a manual process. We currently have 3 resource recovery officers across the LGA checking bins manually. Over 12,000 images were analysed by the team, and the first trial indicated a 74% accuracy in detecting contaminants over a 4-week period, so very promising results. Essentially, we're going to use this to inform our customer experience team in real time, and an opportunity to educate our residents on contamination and changing bad behaviour. We'll know which household is doing the wrong thing. We can tailor our education program to that household. Oh, go back, sorry. We're sharing data with street sweeping. We're notifying our residents when their street is due to be swept, giving them the opportunity to move their vehicle or their trailer so we can access the curbside seamlessly. We've had 3 trials, well, 2 trials so far. We're currently in our 3rd. Our 3 trials focused on different things. So opting in, residents were given the opportunity to opt in to get that notification. Trial 2 was focusing on opt out, whether or not they'd get a text message and then they had the opportunity to opt out of it. Trial 3 is focusing on behavioural change, so seeing if a text message can in fact encourage residents to move their vehicles. We're also looking at built for purpose, so the user experience dashboard. This is our final layer in our solution architecture that we've created, and we're working with Code for Australia on this one. So the fact of the matter is councils are running a manual system in an increasingly automated world. So to ensure we've given our customers an incredible experience, we need to be able to equip our people for success. Essentially what we're doing here is we're developing the final layer of our solution architecture, and our first proof of concept will be for customer experience. So we know that technology has taken over mundane tasks that can be automated and making more room for more high value jobs that require human creativity, cognitive skills and reasoning. So losing the human touch is probably one of the biggest fears surrounding any project, and it was a huge factor in ours. And in reality, if we learn to use technology to create more time for high value tasks and carefully manage that digital personal communication balance, technology might even make us more human. And that's at the core, the very crux of our customer experience and what we want to drive.
2 minutes left, Barbara, thank you.
No worries. So outcomes, we mobilised our whole fleet, 27 trucks. We know that RFID technology is capable, scalable and precise. Street sweeping notification trials are in progress, and there is an appetite for proactive notifications in our community. People want us to contact them. The AI trials are showcasing industry leading and promising results, and we've partnered with industry as well to develop a user experience dashboard. Lessons learnt. People want to feel connected, informed and valued as ratepayers. So artificial intelligence to detect the contamination is a breakthrough for councils. An entire service can be reinvented through technology, and residents are welcoming a digitised customer experience. Building bespoke solutions isn't easy. In fact, it's uncomfortable, operating in the unknown. What we've learned is not to be afraid to take a leap, prototype, test and trial. And this is just the beginning for us. We can do so much more. Success for us is measured by the amount of time and energy dedicated and the resources, patience and permission given. So we've been very lucky that our ELT have given us permission to fail. We're operating smarter, we're maximising the output and the value of our assets and using that output to make more informed decisions about our services. So what were our goals in this project? They're now fast becoming a reality for our organisation. We're empowering our staff with data, we're operating within a culture of innovation, and we're setting the foundations for an informed and engaged community. Thanks everybody, that's a wrap up from me.
Barbara, thanks so much. Right on the 12-minute mark. Thank you.
No worries.
Thank you very much to help us with that time management challenge we've got. So excellent, thank you very much. And Josh Sattler from Darwin, thank you for coming online. We know it's very, very busy times for local government at the moment, with many sort of bushfires to be put out in different places. So what we'll do, Josh, we'll put you to the end so you can sort of settle down and not rush into it. Let's move forward now. So Nathaniel, we're going to head to Newcastle live. I am going to hand the presenter reins over to you around about now, which should allow you to bring up your presentation.
Okay, how are we going? Are you seeing that?
I've got your Teams, Microsoft Teams panel.
Okay.
That could be an interesting case study, but maybe we'll save that for another time.
A multi-screen, hang on, I just have to bring it across. How about that?
There we go. Yeah, if you just want to put that in presenter mode and swap display setting, just swap display settings. Perfect. I'll start the timer, Nathaniel. Over to you.
Afternoon, everyone. I'm pleased to be talking about one of the projects.
Oh, Nathaniel, your headset mic. There we go. Thank you.
You're right, Adam. It's late in the day. Anyway, let's go. I hope we can start the time again.
Okay, go.
Pleased to be presenting a case study on one of the projects that formed part of our response to COVID. So the challenge, this guy, not alone there, wreaking havoc. In particular, we were very interested in doing what we could to sort of identify challenges around isolation and mental health, connecting community, and particularly people who were kind of thrust into unusual situations, being work from home, school from home. That was an interesting time, I think we all agree. But also this challenge. So we know that when there's a community crisis, there's a general upswell of people wanting to help, but sometimes that help is can be wasted or not used optimally if not well directed. This is a photo from the response to the bushfire crisis, where eventually some of those South Coast towns were just saying, stop, please stop sending tin food and blankets. We literally don't know what to do with it all. Our solution was an app called Lean In Newey that we developed with a local Newcastle scale-up called Greenbee. And it was something that we looked at previously. It's got a few great features that we liked. It's an digital platform that incentivizes community members to do certain things through this mechanism of a challenge. What we designed it to do was to provide a lot of different pathways for people to support the community and contribute to the COVID-19 response. Particularly, we're around connecting people with charities, communities who needed help. Generally, it's based around incentivizing pro-social interaction, so community good and well-being. But it also has this other area which is around supporting people, so rewarding people who spend that time to invest in their community, and it rewards them by giving them discounts at local businesses. So it also supports local business. As I mentioned, it's based around the challenge. So basically the design of the app is that we set a challenge, we pose it to the community, we publish it, and people kind of take it on, and they do that and they earn points, and those points can be redeemed. So when we launched, there were 6 categories, the 5 you see on screen, and another one called Lean In Kids, which was aimed specifically for users who were 15 or below. But these categories are all sort of designed around different aspects. So we had a category of challenges that was around how do we set up people to know what they need to know to be able to usefully assist. And then we wanted to do a bunch of challenges that are around formal volunteering. We wanted to have a different set that were really around the scale of the neighbourhood, and so mowing your neighbour's lawn or picking up a food delivery when you're up at the shops. Another set of challenges are around community interaction, and particularly around creative solutions to maintaining community when we were all kind of isolated and locked down, and there was that whole upswing of virtual community that happened. And then encouraging people to not just patronise their local businesses, but to make sure that their local businesses were supported as participants in the community. So this is kind of what we'd be looking at inside the app. Basically, you would jump on, and you're all free to check it out, and you would literally scroll through a shopping list of opportunities about a whole diverse way that you could support your community through this structure of these categories. We launched with 50 in the app, and we've added 30 more since, and those ideas were crowdsourced from across council. And we've since built a community of interest internally that is continually coming up with new ideas. But we've also started to reach out, and in particular, community organisations are able to pose challenges as well. So we wanted to help community organisations to be recipients of the type of support that was useful for them. A lot of these guys were totally under the pump, both in terms of needing to rapidly pivot or scale their service offering in terms of supporting vulnerable communities, but they were also really not able to put any bandwidth, any sort of attention on thinking about creative ways. So we really reached out to them and wanted to support them. We launched with 13 community organisations, and there's 8 more in the process of joining now, and they're very diverse. It really is. If you want to go down that formal volunteering route, then you can find something in Lean in Newey that will tick the boxes for you. Now, part of what we wanted to do was ease that burden on the community organisations of how to take advantage of people's goodwill. So one of the categories is called Ready to Help, and it's essentially a pathway to create new volunteers. We had this idea that we called 80% induction. It hasn't turned out to be quite 80%, but it's a useful term to explain the concept. What we're talking about there is that many organisations have an induction process for volunteering. We do, not-for-profits do. Any organisation that works with volunteers has something. And they all think they're unique, but really when we took that helicopter view, we understood that, perhaps up to 80%, definitely 50% was typical and standardized. So we're talking here about workplace health and safety, information about who can speak to the media, that type of thing. So what we did is we created a bunch of challenges inside the app that took people as far as they could go through those standard aspects of induction. And what that, working with children checks, police check, all of these things that could be done before you even make a connection with the volunteer community organisation. And what that meant was that all that was left for the community organisation to do was the site-specific induction and the activity-specific induction. So we really shortened that time frame to get someone usefully into a role, and also took some of that burden on. Once you've completed this sort of linked series of challenges around getting ready to help, then that would trigger you in the app into a volunteer user status, and that would make certain parts of the app visible to you that weren't visible to other people. And that's where you would see the formal volunteering opportunities. Obviously, it's the range of businesses that are in the app is important for us to both spread the love in terms of the support, but also because the businesses are providing the reward opportunities. So we launched with 22, 16 more have been added since, and there's 19 in the process. So we're pretty happy with that, but we want to have hundreds of businesses listed on here. What do they get? They get access to a community of really interested people, and we've also created, I guess, a process where City of Newcastle is funding the rebate for them at the moment, while we're coming out of this, the worst of this COVID period. So what type of rewards? I guess this is where, what intrigues people about it is that the business can offer any type of reward they want. We promote them, encourage them to design rewards that are sort of, the user gets a discount, but they have to bring some of their own money as well. What that means for us and the project is that the money we invest in it is doubled by co-contribution or more from the community. So there's a whole range of different rewards that can be used inside the app, and it's quite a simple user experience and process to do that. So 27 for launch, 18 more added since, and likewise that will keep growing. So that ranges from a free coffee to, as you see down there at the bottom of the screen, so tickets, discount at a trampoline park, or a ride on one of the boats in our harbour, etc. A whole range of different things. Okay, so outcomes. When we talk numbers, we're aimed for 2,000 in the first 3 months, and we're at 2,014 as of 1 o'clock this afternoon. We've created and connected 61 new volunteers, which we're really proud of. That's really amazing. There's 3,675 challenges either completed or underway in 3 months, and so that's pretty good. Now, each one of those is doing good in the community. It might be helping your elder friend get online or starting an online book group. It might be mowing your neighbour's lawn. It might be knitting a blanket for someone in an old person's home. It might be any number of things. There really is a huge range of options. So we've just completed a survey of our users. Now, the sample wasn't massive. It was about 180, I think. But I just put out 2 of the results that I thought were really interesting. And actually, I'm really proud of our community. So the first was, what motivates you to participate? 50% were about an altruistic approach, which is great. Now, we kind of sensed that at the beginning that this was going to be of that nature, but that's really pleasing to see that a huge number of people are doing it just for the good of it. Secondly, we are having a challenge, and that is sort of people are doing the challenge, they're earning the points, but they're not always redeeming the points. So we're trying to crack that particular nut as we speak. So we've asked questions like this: what stops you from redeeming? And the highest figure there was no rewards that people are interested in, which has spurred us on to really double down on that onboarding of new businesses, so that we've got a much broader range of options for people to spend their points. But if you look at those 2 together, I mean, part of that is that 50% of people aren't interested in redeeming the reward, or at least that is not their primary motivation for participating in the app.
Nathaniel, about 30 seconds to go.
Okay, cool. I think we'll get there. So we're using it in a whole bunch of interesting new ways as well. It started as COVID specific, but we see strong ongoing use for innovation, community development, consultation around public exhibition, etc. And we're using it to deliver street gardens, citizen science, a small grants program. We ran an experiment last week where we had people upload videos, and then the community voted on those videos all through the app, and that was amazing. So really, we're thinking creatively about how it can be used going forward. Lessons: the speed to respond to COVID versus the accuracy of the solution. That was really, I think everyone knows that. What was available out of the box versus what we had to do in terms of customizing it to be a fit for purpose app, given that speed, that was a real challenge. We're able to do a lot of different testing of marketing strategies inside the app in terms of different narratives, different images, so that's really amazing. The businesses take a while to onboard. That's a process we're going through, but really the key lesson was working with a locally invested industry partner, someone who knows the city, knows the community, and really wants it to succeed, because Green Bee have gone above and beyond. Download the app, people, and that's me. Thank you.
Nathaniel, thanks so much for that. Super interesting, and the diversity of our case studies is going to continue now. We're going to head down to Sydney, and David, I am about to hand over the presentation reins to you. Hopefully that should come up. Just a reminder to put that into display mode when you get that going.
Yeah, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
And I just need to change my settings there, I think.
Oh, no, you're all good. Perfect. We can see it right now.
Am I good now?
We're good. Thank you, David. Over to you.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity. So my name's David Eckstein. I work in the sustainability strategy team at the City of Sydney. And my colleagues, Kate and Olivia, are closer to the Smart Cities network than myself, but I'm aware of the work you guys are doing and the importance of innovation. And they mentioned a couple of weeks ago that they thought a project which we got involved with a couple of years ago might be very pertinent because of the innovation aspects of it. So I'm going to talk about concrete, which it's not the grooviest of subjects, I acknowledge, but we've got ourselves involved in a really interesting project that, that involves a significant innovation in this space. I'll give you a brief background on the City of Sydney and our sustainability ambition, the challenge that comes from the world of concrete and cement. The innovation, I've called it the innovation there because while it is one solution, there will be other solutions to this concrete challenge, which I'll explain. But ours is one of a number of innovations that will be critical in this space over the years to come. And then I'll talk about the outcomes. Just by way of background, the city has been on a very strong sustainability agenda since 2006, when we went to our community and asked about their values and got them to shape our Sustainable Sydney 2030 plan. And the theme of sustainability was one of three very strong themes that could be summarized as green, global, and connected. And the city developed targets around particular themes in our Sustainability Sydney 2030 strategic plan. And the high-level targets in the environment area are particularly around greenhouse gas emissions, with a target to reduce the LGA's emissions by 70% by 2030, based on a 2006 baseline. We always refer back to this 2006, or we often do, because that was the line in the sand when we decided as an organisation, and the community told us that the direction they wanted us to head. We do have a net zero emissions target, carbon emissions target by 2050, and I anticipate that like a number of organisations, that we are going to bring that forward to 2040. It's not locked in yet, but I anticipate that's where we're heading. And the last dot point there is just to clarify, not to clarify, but to say that we've just gone back to community in the last year prior to COVID, because we need to update our Sustainable Sydney plan for 2050 now. And what was really heartening for us and enables us to keep doing what we do and build on that, really the community's desires for action in my environmental space were as strong and stronger than ever regarding climate change, water conservation and biodiversity. So it's not as if the community have shifted away from these values and these important outcomes. And I don't expect that COVID-19 will really change that in the long run. I think the community know that we've got to do a better job of care for country, I guess. So now I'll just go straight to this, cut to the chase with concrete. So concrete is surprisingly a significant source of carbon emissions, and it actually contributes 5 to 7% of all human-derived emissions. We use a lot of concrete. 2018 estimated 4.1 billion tonnes of cement, which obviously is a key component of concrete. And this is where the carbon emissions come from. It's the production of cement using a traditional method called Portland, the Portland method. It's that method of cracking limestone and creating that cement for an additive to create concrete. That's where the carbon intensity comes from. We produce 0.87, or almost, you could say, almost a ton of CO2 per ton of concrete. And I can assure you that a ton of concrete is not a very large volume. So in terms of on the ground, so you can imagine that, a roadway, a footpath, a building, each of those things has significant embedded carbon in the production of concrete and the cement. And what we know for sure is that we're going to continue to use high volumes of this material for decades to come. It's a great material. Cement is a clever, smart material, and we've been using cement for essentially the same sort of product for 200 years. It does a great job, but we're going to have to find smart solutions for cement going forward, or concrete going forward, I should say, if we're going to control carbon emissions. We have to innovate in this space. Now, the leading edge of concrete innovation is in a technology called geopolymer concrete. And geopolymer concrete doesn't use any of that traditional Portland cement. So you get concrete, the end product that you want to use for construction, buildings, roads, footpaths, etc. And yet it completely bypasses the Portland cement part of the concrete process. and therefore it's dramatically less carbon intensive. A great double win here is that the geopolymer concrete itself makes use of some significant waste products, fly ash and slag. These are products from the power station sector and from steel industry and smelting. So these large piles of previously very unusable product have been sitting in industrial sites for many, many years. And now with this innovation, we have a way of using those products directly in a construction process. So geopolymer innovation addresses greenhouse emissions and industrial waste. It's a really potent innovation. At the City of Sydney last year, we were involved in the first global first road trial of geopolymer concrete. So pouring concrete in a practical application of a roadway is a big step forward. There have been numerous innovations outside of civil infrastructure or and in footpath and sort of driveway settings, but to really test these products, you have to put them in, you have to have the courage to put them into real world heavy use situations. And inner Sydney, plenty of road traffic, no surprises there. This is close to Green Square where we installed this this product. The innovators who collaborated with us are the UNSW materials engineers, especially Stephen Forster. He's a legend in this space. We laid geopolymer concrete alongside Portland cement, so we replaced a section of road using the traditional and the innovation material right next to each other, which is great for comparative purposes. Like I said, it's a busy section of road, it's a robust test environment, and we installed, or the UNSW team installed, sensors within the concrete where they collect and monitor the performance of the product over the years. And this is all about demonstrating the durability. We have to be able to show that this product can stand up to industrial scale transport. So we're about a year, 14 months on since installation, and the roadway's laid. The UNSW team are collecting this data. They download from data loggers alongside the roadway. Every month they visit the site and download data. They're in the early stages of processing that data at the moment. Significantly, we are seeking to influence standards for concrete and the use of concrete in Australia. So engineers obviously call up standards and look to standards for all the specifying work they do for construction projects, engineering and buildings, etc. And so our work is really important in influencing these standards. And it's great that Stephen Forster from UNSW is actually a very active member of the Australian standards, concrete standards group. So he really understands the importance of changing, getting improvements or changes to standards, because if you don't get the product recognised in standards, then you just simply don't open up the commercial usage avenue for the product. Just a few simple lessons learned for us, lessons learned, I guess. Collaboration with technical expertise, and so the technical expertise came from UNSW, but they don't manage roads. They needed a partner who could open up a roadway, enable a concrete pour, and then continue to maintain and check that public infrastructure. There's risks there, but you have to be bold and grab those opportunities when they come up. One of the key outcomes of this innovation was multiple challenges could be addressed at the same time. I mentioned the industrial waste use as well as the carbon reductions. That third point, it looks a very generic observation, but if not us, then who? Cities can be, responsive, and they can grab opportunities faster than other tiers of government. That's my firm view. And having a manager at the city at that time, Andrew Christie, he's now actually gone to Townsville City, but Andrew is definitely proactive about taking up innovation opportunities. And while you have to meet the standards and ensure safety issues are addressed, etc., we chased this hard, and we were really excited to be involved in it. And I guess the last observation really is that regarding the climate change challenge, there really is no time to waste. We actually can't spend very long on the sidelines here. If we don't act now and act fast in each innovation space that we can, we are going to run out of time, and I'm sorry to put it that way, but all the signals are that this issue of global temperatures is getting away from us, and so we will need to innovate in every space. And this has been one example of that, and we hope to influence the use of concrete nationally and hopefully beyond that eventually. I think that's me done.
David, thank you. Thank you sincerely for that presentation. We're going to now move to our final presentation, case study presentation for the day, with Josh Sattler. Now, Josh, have you got your slide deck there? Do you want to power it from your end? I can give you the controls.
If you have a power, I will do it. Yeah, what do I do?
Sorry, Josh, that audio is a little bit challenging to hear. Have you got a headset or something that you could plug in, or?
No, I don't.
Okay, that's a little bit better. You're a bit closer. I've got your presentation here. Do you want me to bring it up, or do you want to bring it up on your end?
That's fine. That one's free.
I can't catch that, Josh. Sorry.
Oh, really?
Is that a yes or no?
That was a yes, mate.
Okay. I am going to bring it up here, and I'm going to take control back over. I'm going to be the presenter. Okay, you let me know when you want to advance, Josh. I'll have to get you to stay close to your audio so that we can hear it. But over to you.
Can you hear that? Is that coming through all right, Adam?
Kind of, but kind of not. Hard to pick you up.
Wow, okay. Let me just have a look at the audio. It seems like it's coming through okay.
Okay, it's average. Let's go with it. Over to you.
Okay. So first and foremost, one of the things we're sitting here in Darwin, we're pretty lucky to get through it, the COVID from our perspective relatively quickly. So I've had 0 days working from home, or working as essential workers in the office here. So essentially we come up with an initiative called My Darwin. And for us, it motivated us to think outside the box, because we couldn't afford to just sit here and wait for someone else to come up with the ideas. So if you want to flick to the next slide, Adam. So at a glance, we're looking at 4 weeks in isolation, which was federally imposed like everyone else, 4 weeks through to a new normal. There was no community transfer up here, and from our perspective, we had no tourism in, but we definitely didn't have any leakage out as well. So there was a bit of an opportunity within that crisis. And our common theme was obviously, the hit to all our local economies across the nation. For us, looking at a 7% GDP drop, which compared to GFC, it's well above what that was. So those were definitely trying times. Next slide, Adam. So what we wanted to do, and what we usually do in the city of Darwin around Christmas time, is to try and say, let's look at our revenue streams and how we can give that back to not only community but businesses. So from our perspective, we come up with a bit of more of a circular model where we garnished revenue from parking revenue for the month prior to COVID, to allocate some funding associated to one, build the platform, which we did in 5 weeks, which is a web responsive browser, not an app, and then launch 5 to 6 weeks later. So in the original time frame, we allocated about 300,000 to be invested into the initiative, and through this process, we obtained more monies, both from council and also from the Northern Territory government, which saw us put in around 650,000 into this My Darwin platform, with about a $4 million stimulus associated with that into 3 main industry sectors, which were hospitality, tourism and retail. Within 6 weeks, we had a user group of plus 40,000 and registered over 500 businesses. So, when you're looking at, that's close to half of the population of Darwin CBD within 5 weeks jumping on and using this. It was pretty exciting numbers, and now it's offered territory-wide, all across the Northern Territory to other councils as well. And nationally as well. But next slide, eh? So what is it? It's a web application, really simply. That's the only way we could build it that quick. The basis of it is that it offers a 25% discount with the businesses or the merchants that apply. We were always looking at around a 4 times multiplier associated with that discount. But what we found through the rollout over the last 6 to 8 weeks is we've actually got a multiplier of about 6. So people are quite happy to spend more money and take it up to that next point of discount ratio. For us, it's going to be a legacy platform, so this will stick around through whatever and then whenever we want to use it again. So we're already in discussions at the moment to bring it back online through October, November and December, and looking at funding that through parking revenue as well, and also Northern Territory Government's contribution. And we can also bring this back online at any time you actually need it, whether it's on the back end of a cyclone or other disasters that we get up here quite often. For us, it's a platform for consumers, it's a platform for merchants, really, really simple. And it's for us, it was about getting money back into the pockets of businesses as quickly as possible. Because the reality was, if these businesses were to close, we would lose ratepayer base. They were moving out of the territory, and as a council, they're our major source of revenue. So for us, it was about keeping small business in business as quickly as possible. Next slide, Adam. The tech stack was simple. Again, it was a progressive web application. From our perspective, it was available on all browsers and all devices, a singular domain which people could find it. We had a QR code which was launched with stickers as well when we launched the platform, and all the shops which registered got the sticker and the QR code, so people were able to download it and register relatively quickly. From a user perspective or a consumer perspective, registration takes about 20 seconds. And from a business perspective, it's about 2 days to go through the process internally with us at council. Next slide, Adam. Again, the 3 areas which I spoke to previously: consumer, merchant, and us, the council as the administrator. And everything we've built here, we've built it as a white label version. So when we're talking about My Darwin, it's also my city, whatever city that you want to deploy this platform in. It's easy to white label, change the colours, put your name on there, change all the tools, etc. And we've already started doing that across the nation as we speak. Next slide. Simple sign-up process. Again, straight to the portal. You get a one-time user password. The information we collect is simply only your mobile number and your email address, first name, last name. We're not interested in anything other pieces of information, and the mobile number is only used at one time to register your password. Obviously, our terms and conditions are quite broad, but for us, it's we can go through those eligibility criteria as well. The site is live at the moment, so you can jump on my.darwin.nt.gov.au, jump online, have a look at all the terms and conditions, all the associated frequently asked questions, etc. It's live as we speak, and we're still getting people registered all the way through, even though it's not currently funded at this point. It'll be looking to be funded again towards the end of this month and all the way through to Christmas. Next slide, Adam. Again, user homepage. So, from an economic development perspective, all of a sudden we've got 500 odd businesses, which as a council is really hard to get that information live time, what businesses are doing what businesses are actually still running a business in the city. For us, we were able to get that all within about 6 weeks. We understood how many vouchers were being used at individual businesses, etc. So all of a sudden we've got this live database, which we managed to collate within 6 weeks, which is the hardest part from economic development perspective, especially going through a period like COVID. What businesses are still live, what businesses are active, and what ethics can we apply to decision making associated with where people spend their money. So that was a really good tool that came out the back of this project. Next slide. It works on a digital discount voucher basically system. It's a two-step authentication process. These discounts at the moment come through every 24 hours, so it incentivizes people to spend money, and you don't actually get the voucher unless you spend. They can be sitting on your platform, but unless you actually use them, there's no implied discount. You need to spend money to get the discount. Next slide. Next step, we've got to the businesses, or the merchants we call them. Again, register via the business tab on the platform. And this takes about 2 days, so we have to go through some information that they provide to us and verify the business. Some eligibility criteria put in there. You know, you have to have 4 walls, you have to be located within the municipality of Darwin. But not from a, you know, if you go back to the consumer can come from anywhere. We've had registrations from New South Wales, Victoria, South Australia, Queensland. People were spending money outside of municipality, but with municipality-based businesses, which was really important. Next slide, Adam. So at this point from the merchant, he gets the voucher code from you. You're sitting in front of him. You show him the voucher. He puts the voucher and the transaction amount, presses redeem, and within seconds that's taken off your platform or your device and is redeemed from their perspective as a merchant. So they offer the discount. You receive the discount as a merchant or as the consumer, and then we pay the merchant within 7 days. So what we didn't want to do is have businesses open back up after COVID lockdown and try and incentivise and try and get people through. We wanted to be able to be that incentivisation carrot and get community through as soon as possible to get these businesses thriving as soon as possible. Next slide. Again, this is what the merchant can see, and this is what we see every week. This comes through, what's been verified, the code associated with it, the transaction amount, what's the dollar value, and then we process that payment as a council. So we set each business up as a creditor of ours in our system, and that's a little bit of the front end work that has to take a little bit of heavy lift from our resources internally. But once it's in train, it's a nice and easy process. Every week, these businesses get paid for transactions that they actually made for Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. They're paid on Thursday. And that was a promise we made to our businesses here within Darwin, and that's why we've had such a great success, not only the use, but also the businesses registering as well. Next slide. Eligibility criteria, this is what we've set. Obviously other cities can set different eligibility criteria and this can be customised, but from our perspective we're looking at small business and from that perspective what those ANZ requirements were as well with regard to those sectors. We set 10 million with regard to turnover and a few other parameters within there as well, but at the end of the day our resources approve the applications based on those eligibility criteria we set and council endorsed from the outset. And again, this is something that the city is looking at white labelling this platform. Next slide.
2 minutes to go.
Yeah, let's wrap it up. Next slide. This is just some stats, and I think this was through the first $300,000 which we put in the system. At that point, there was 24,340 odd businesses, but you can see the multiplier associated with that. You know, we were working with a 4 times multiplier to begin with a 25% discount. And we're actually at the end of that $300,000, it was a +6 mark. So great benefit to the small businesses within Darwin, within the municipality. Next slide. So at the end of round 4, we were looking at $650,000 that went in, and that received over $4 million stimulus into the economy, and that was across about 6 weeks. And again, we maintain that 6 times multiplier associated with it. So not only were people happy to come out and spend, we incentivised that spending process, but they actually spent a lot more, which was a fantastic outcome of the project. And you know, every week we went out live with this information. This is how many people, this is the average transactions. All the data was live time. You know, there's a fear of missing out scale on there as well. So it actually pushed people to get out there quicker when they saw the kitty run down. So these are some really interesting aspects which we saw through the rollout of the program and why it's been such a success, and we'll continue to do so definitely through Christmas period. Next slide. So what do we learn? You know, there was this concept of isolation hibernation. I talked to it quite a fair bit. Just because the gates are open, people don't necessarily come out. They really need to be incentivised. And we saw that. We went through a period of about 3 weeks before My Darwin was activated where the restrictions were loosened. And people didn't come out. They were quite happy to stay at home or to take away. And that meant a massive impact for jobs and for people still getting back into the workforce. So for us, it worked and cracked the back of the isolation. Money spent quick enables outcomes for small business now. You know, businesses can't just wait. They need to employ people. They need the business to employ people. For us, they got money back into their pockets within 7 days. And that was a big kicker for us. for us as well, you know, I often say don't reinvent the wheel. You know, from our perspective, we've proven it, it works. You know, it's a platform that you can just pick up off the shelf and run with straight away. You've just got to find the dollars to put into it to begin with. But from our perspective, you know, don't waste time in trying to reinvent the wheel. And for us, we've rapidly responded to a new normal. So we've progressed well far beyond any other place within Australia at the moment. We're having activities here, 10,000 plus events with people at them. So we're back to really a normal state of play in the territory, and this really enabled that to accelerate the outcome. So that pretty much wraps it up, Adam. I hope you heard that okay.
Yeah, no, that was great, Josh. Thanks so much for bringing that through to the end there. I'm going to go to the question box and see what we've got there. Now let me have a look here. We've got a question from Mark. David, this one goes to you regarding the inroad sensors. What are the details of the equipment that was used there that were placed to measure? Is there any intel you can give us there, or is that an offline response that you need to give?
It's an offline response, but I'm in touch with the UNSW team regularly. When I spoke to Steve a couple of days ago, and I'm not an engineer, he used the term spikes and strains. So the equipment they have is there to detect a range of things, ongoing strain over time, and the performance under extreme incidents, heavy traffic, etc. I'm happy to take that one and get back to the questioner. Okay.
Okay, thanks, David. You can funnel that through me. Thanks, Mark, for the question. We have another question up here from Oz, who's dialing in from Budapest in Hungary. Welcome. This is for Dom. Dom, did you work on any civic engagement around your data sharing, education around smart cities issues? Is there anything you can share on how you've engaged the community with the work that you presented to us?
In terms of engaging the community, the project is still well within council's boundaries due to the privacy around the data, but we're working towards opening that up and potentially pushing it towards open data, which Brisbane City Council has, and looking to include any other data sets that the community and public would be interested in. But for now, due to a lot of privacy, we're still working through that. And I guess COVID was a good example of how data sharing can accelerate, open-mindedness towards cross-department sharing. And we're just working on continuing that out to the public.
Okay, excellent. Thanks, Dom, for that response. Again, a quick reminder: if anyone in the audience has got a question they want to ask, pop that in the box. I wanted to pick up on that point, Dom, that you just referred to in terms of data and sharing. This question is to the entire panel. Through the respective projects that you've presented today, what have you learned about data sharing? And I'm going to go from the top around the board here. So Dom, we're going to come back to you. I know it's early days and nothing's gone really public, but has there anything yet in the work you've done on the live dashboard, the City Live dashboard, that has sort of advanced your capability, literacy, learnings around sharing data?
Yes, and I'll go into that. We are lucky to have within City Analytics, we've got data scientists dedicated to data analytics. So that's a huge benefit for us because we're able to utilize their time for data projects. The data sharing normally is a little bit wrapped up in silos, as the presentation alluded to. But one advantage of COVID-19 for us is that people were more open-minded to sharing it to, I guess, tackle a citywide problem. So it presented a great opportunity for us to accelerate data sharing because of that common problem. It also allowed others to trust us a little bit more. So we have kept that private and secure, and it's locked up in our Power BI dashboards with, you know, specific registrations for who's allowed to use it. It's also been good for the users, who are the executive management team, because they've seen the benefit of all the data that Brisbane City Council has on hand finally released in one platform. So all that data that they do collect in small pockets now sitting in one space has been a big benefit from the use of data sharing and collaboration, which a lot of the other projects alluded to as well. So there's been a huge benefit for us to continue to develop our data projects, our data workshops, and we're really pushing forward with that through City Analytics and our Economic Development Manager, Chris Isles, as well, who's got a big focus on that.
Excellent, Dom, thanks for that. Barbara, same question for you. Through your project, what have you learned in the data sharing space? What can you share with us?
One thing that we've definitely learned is that it's very much a grey area. It's uncharted territory for us, and in our organisation specifically, to be completely open and transparent about it, it's a bit of an orphan. So we don't have a dedicated team that would be looking at data governance, data quality assurance. It's kind of split between, you know, the information services team, our records team, and our governance team. But we've been liaising with other councils. So we've reached out and we've spoken to City of Adelaide, Dom, we've even spoken to you guys, City of Brisbane at some stage. And we're trying to really understand what the baseline is for, you know, capturing data, utilizing it and speaking to our residents. Now, obviously, in saying that, we've got our internal policies that are in place, the Privacy Act, we've got legislation that we're adhering to, but in proactively notifying residents and reaching out to them, we've been very careful in the trials that we've run, that we're only contacting residents who have given us permission to do so at one point in time. So we've got a cleanup database where residents have opted in. They've given us their details through an online platform for us to go and collect their bulky waste, and it's only those residents that we contacted. So there is still a grey area, and we're still finding our feet, but we're being very careful in doing that so we don't breach anything. And it's people's private information that we're dealing with. One other thing that's been very clear to us is that, and I'm assuming most councils are the same, and the ones that we have spoken to are in the same boat, information stored in silos. And a lot of the systems that councils are operating in are proprietary systems as well, and they don't talk to each other. So we've got, you know, separate databases at the moment in our leisure and aquatics team area. We've got rates, separate database altogether. And what we've been doing is we've been cross-checking that information across those systems and seeing that there's a lot of gaps. So there's a lot of work to be done. But it's definitely been a consultative process with, you know, the different teams internally, other councils, and residents alike as well, asking them if they want to participate.
Thanks, Barbara. Josh, a question for you. You know, you've got some gold there that you've created in terms of data coming through the My.Darwin platform. Internally or externally, what are the data sharing kind of lessons learned for you guys?
You can hear me okay now? That's coming through okay? Yep. I think for us, there's a holy grail, okay? So when it comes to groups that anonymise, beautiful, let's share as much as we can. But when we're talking about private information associated with individuals, we've pretty much covered that stuff. But from us, with My.Darwin, you know, to create that ethical decision-making associated with where you're going to spend your money, whether it be within the tourism industry, hospitality or retail, looking at those dials come down with regard to retail, getting a lot of spend over the last 2 days, let's go make a decision to go spend somewhere else. There's an ethical decision-making process associated with what you're giving them from a data perspective, and we're able to do that, and we saw the impact that had. You know, we've got a couple of retail outlets up here, and one that's heavily hit all the time. You know, a big sticker up here is, you know, I vote and I hunt. So you can imagine the retail up here with regard to where they sell shooting gun, where they sell guns and fishing rods, etc. That shop went through the roof. I think they've got about $50,000 worth of revenue and about 3,500 vouchers within the first 4 weeks. So there was, you know, able to provide that information to the general members of the public so they can make a decision then what businesses they want to support was critical for us, and we saw the impact it had, and we still see it today as well. So it's, from our perspective, it was, you know, if you got a group that anonymised, there's no reason why you can't share it, and impact decision-making processes ethically. I think that was a big one for us.
Yeah, excellent. Thanks, Josh. Nathaniel, the Lean and Nui app seems to be a heavy lift across so many different departments and elements and thematic areas of the whole city. Where and what did you sort of learn, and where are you at with respect to the data sharing internally and externally?
Yeah, look, like Josh, we're very conscious of the privacy concerns of people who give us their information into an app like Lean in Nui. The platform itself obviously yields a huge amount of information: what type of person, what age demographics more likely to do this or that, or engage with this challenge and reward or whatnot. So we're not at a point where we're making that publicly available. But as you alluded to, the actual design and development of the project was a really broadly interdisciplinary effort from right across council. And the thing that we learned was that this organisation is hungry for good data that can be turned around quickly. What the app can do is that you can test different messaging in real time. You can get feedback almost instantly about what's working, what's not. That's going to roll through into how different comms campaigns are designed, how different public exhibitions are managed. So it's a very useful tool, and we really are just still trying to figure out its full capacity. So maybe down the track, some of the ideas that Josh just mentioned, I've taken a few notes there, mate, about making some of those patterns public to drive other patterns. That's awesome. But we're not there yet. We're still playing around internally with it.
Yeah, okay. Thanks, Nathaniel. David, last one for you.
Yep.
Same question. I mean, this seems like a bit of a longitudinal study, if I've got that right. I mean, so you're going to be getting a ton of data. What does data sharing look like on this project?
Well, interesting, that case study is very different from the others in that it's not a direct, the data isn't one step to the community. We're dealing with, engineers and science data and road builders. I think probably the most strongest thing I can say is that we're in the room with on other materials type discussions. For example, the New South Wales government's road and maritime services have been looking at trying to work out how we can get glass into crushed glass into asphalt as a substitute for virgin raw materials. Now, okay, that's asphalt, it's not concrete, but the people in the room are in the same game. It's the road construction game, and so there's all this cross-fertilization that occurs, and that's probably, so in our case, it's more at this stage about the network gains with other professionals rather than a broad dissemination. But the extra thing I'd say there is Stephen's connection to Australian standards is going to be particularly powerful, because he really understands the role of standards, international standards, Australian standards, and so that him sharing his findings, despite the fact he's directly involved in the project, he will obviously have some need to declare his interest in the project. I think that's a very powerful thing, because the standards, getting standards to recognise new materials, that's a quantum leap forward in terms of uptake.
Yeah, thanks, David. I knew somewhat in depth of your case studies today, except David, I knew a little bit about the case study you presented, not a great deal. But now knowing more about it, you're doing nothing less than sort of doing the heavy lifting for an entire industry. And if there's ever an area to go into battle with to try and fundamentally transform, it's things like concrete. So I want to congratulate you all on the fantastic work that you're doing under this theme of impact. I think you've done more than nail the brief. Each and every one of your case studies are nation leading, if not internationally leading, and your willingness to share today outcomes and lessons learned, and indeed your continued willingness to, on an ongoing basis, to share needs to be congratulated. And on behalf of sort of everyone in the entire world, I want to thank you, because I can say that at the moment. So Barbara, Dom, Nathaniel, Josh, and David, thank you so much for joining us as part of Smart Cities Week and presenting those excellent case studies. Thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure. Thanks for having us.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, Adam. It's great.
Just quickly, folks, before we wrap, I've got 32 seconds left on my clock. I wanted to let you know again that we have some great sessions coming up for Smart Cities Week. A plenary morning on the 21st of September. We have bookend keynotes in the morning, kicking off with Minister Dominello from New South Wales. We'll be talking about their recent launches of their Smart Places strategy, their Smart Infrastructure strategy, policy, and many other things. We've got Mayor Teresa Harding from the City of Ipswich bookending at the end with a keynote, and in the middle we have a panel, Rebecca, Alice, Jonathan, and Di, who are going to join us to have a dialogue around this idea of measuring the work that we do in the smart city space and city shaping, and whether we're making a difference and having an impact. And I think that's about it from me. So again, to our guests, thank you for joining us. To our audience, thank you for dialing in. As a reminder, this recording will be up on our YouTube channel around about the same time tomorrow. Until we see you online again next, stay well, healthy, safe, and have a fantastic week. Thanks everyone for joining us.
Thank you. Bye now.
Thank you.